Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast. Welcome to the final and part 4 of our multi-day trip planning special. And we're going to continue to look at kit, starting off with my favourite obsession, which is gloves. Oh man, I'm obsessed with gloves.
You've told me about your glove drawer.
It's a large drawer full of gloves, funnily enough.
Yeah, how many pairs do you reckon in there?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I reckon I've got at least 8 pairs of gloves.
Talk us through them. Why have you got so many different pairs? What different, obviously different seasons, but you only need a summer pair and a winter pair, surely.
So motocross gloves, I think, are almost my go-to for trail riding because you've got a thin palm, you've got the ultimate feel, you can grab the bars, you've got full control of everything. But they're usually not waterproof, so you need a waterproof pair of gloves as well for if it rains. And then if you're going to do a long stretch on the road, or if you're going to do a road tour, you need something with a little bit more protection just in case you end up sliding down the road. So you need road gloves, and you need some with thin palms, and then if it rains, you need a pair that are waterproof. So I'm up to a minimum of 4 pairs.
That you'll take with you on a week-long trip?
I will probably always have 3 pairs with me.
I don't think you're alone there. I can make that confession as well.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah, but yours are all from, like, Screwfix, Noel.
1 Screwfix pair, 1 chainsaw pair, and 1 road bike pair for the road.
Any waterproof ones?
There is no such thing as a waterproof glove.
No, there is.
Absolutely. No, there isn't.
The water runs down your arms, through the cuffs. Yeah, I've never had a pair of waterproof gloves. I have had a pair of seemingly waterproof gloves, but they've never worked.
I've got 1 pair of waterproof gloves. I've got a pair of Alpine Stars Jet Road or something like that, and they're absolutely brilliant. But the problem is the fingers are really short on them, so they don't fit me properly. But I've kept them because they are waterproof.
Low Alpine gloves, they're my only waterproof gloves that I wear on a motorbike.
These are...
Oh, they're the new Adventure Spec waterproof.
This is the only one in existence.
How waterproof is it, Greg?
It's waterproof. I filled it up with water yesterday to see if it leaks, and it didn't leak.
Wow.
Okay, that's like waterproof socks. Have you ever worn waterproof socks and got water in them and the water doesn't come out?
Yes.
Thank you, Noel. Well, here you go. Top tip. If they let water in but don't let it out, put them on inside out, and then you will have dry feet. Think about it; it'll work.
I thought you were going to say they just work like a wetsuit, and as long as your feet are warm, everything's fine.
I wear sealskin socks a lot, but I just find that they make my feet absolutely stink and don't keep my feet dry.
So those gloves, Greg, they're still quite a short cuff, aren't they?
Oh yeah. I mean, because they're like adventure trail based. They're not designed with the big long cuff that's meant to go over the top of your jacket.
So in being waterproof, what's the idea that you would try and keep your elbows below your hand?
It's like that.
Yeah.
If you've got your waterproof jacket on over the top, they are a balance between something big and bulky and totally waterproof, but it's big and bulky and not really that suitable for kind of trail riding, to something that is as trim and lightweight as we can make it, but still be waterproof.
Yeah.
You know? But I mean, I get your point, like about whether or not the cuff goes inside or outside, you know.
I think I'm sort of resigned to wet hands, so I take spare gloves, or I get around the whole thing by just using handlebar muffs. But if I was going on a European trip in the middle of summer, I would just rely on spare gloves and drying out the wet gloves.
Handlebar muffs. What a revelation they were. After spending years ridiculing you for the use of handlebar muffs, why doesn't everybody have them and use them for when it rains? Because your hands just don't suffer.
Yeah, and that's how I came to handlebar muffs, was knowing somebody who used them in London and always taking the mickey out of them and saying how ridiculous they looked. And then eventually thinking, well, there might be something in it. I think I'd been to Paris and I'd seen all these lads on scooters in Paris where they have the full apron as well as muffs, and just thinking, well, there's something in that extra protection.
It's like the 250L. It's like the older you get, the less of a shit you care about what people think.
It's true.
Well, yeah, but they don't even look that bad, I don't think. Do they? Do they look bad after I'm immune to it now, as to whether they look silly or not?
That's the point, is we don't care, do we? Because we've got nice warm hands, and you haven't.
They don't look good in photos.
Do they not?
No.
Do you have any, Paul?
I have got a set of Hippo hands. I don't know if you've heard of them.
They were our first and only sponsor. And I think I just listened back to an episode earlier, actually, where I mentioned them, and they gave me a 20% off. And I think the same week, Greg had fallen off on his and got a hole in one, and they just sent him some new ones.
So they said they would, but they
okay, then. I feel better for that, then.
They're on and off with one strap, aren't they? And if you were on a week-long tour, they are small enough that you could quite easily cram them into the corner of a pannier bag. And
the nice thing is with the Hippo hands is they stay open, so you're not having to kind of open them up you can get your hand in really quickly and easily.
Noel's sitting there like nodding his head like a nodding donkey, but he's the only one out of the four of us that doesn't actually have any Hippo hands.
No, I was just going to say I have the flat. I have the ones that go flat,
going like this.
And I tend to, if I'm not using them, they sit really nicely either in the bottom of your bag or even under the bag between the bag and the luggage rack. So they're not a great hindrance to take and not use, or they don't take up a lot of space. Brilliant things.
Yeah, get some.
And I would say just get the cheapest ones you can find. You can get a pair for £15. They'll last for years and years and years. They're pretty resilient.
You could get some old coconut shells or something like that, couldn't you? And stick them to your fucking bars.
Let's go shopping bag. Brilliant.
Genuinely, the difference between the Hippo hands and the cheap ones is that the cheaper ones squash downwards. The Hippo hands stay wide open. So as for adventure riders, putting hands in and out regularly, as opposed to just staying in one position all the time, that's kind of what they're.
Well, I would argue that my handlebar, my handguards, my Barkbuster handguards, create an open space with the flat muffs quite well. You know, they do create an open envelope. It's not like you're sneaking it into a flat thing.
I would argue that you're wrong.
The £15 off, 15 quid ones off eBay are quite a good way into the world of the muff. See if you like them or not. And I did. And I bought some more expensive ones with my 20% discount from Hippo Hands.
You can also get furry muffs, apparently, can't you?
Yeah,
they're a bit. I think they were around a bit more in like the late 70s and 80s. I think most of them aren't that hairy anymore.
I think you might be talking about something else, Paul. Right, last two things I want to talk about, clothing-wise, are boots and socks.
Pink boots. Wear pink boots. You look great in all the photos and all the videos, don't you, Greg?
Well, someone needs to be there to kind of be the butt of all the jokes, so it might as well be the pink-booted rider.
I've got pink boots and I'm proud of them. They are Tech 7s and they are very, very comfortable. Next conversation, because that's all you need to know.
So are they full-on motocross boots or do they have a grippy sole on them?
Balls, you found me out. I have also got a pair of normal black Alpine Star Tech 3s with a gripped sole. So I've kind of got a summer pair of boots and a winter pair of boots. And the pink boots don't come out if it's wet and muddy. Not because I don't want to get the pink boots dirty, but because they've got a motocross sole and they would be like ice skating. So yeah, buy a pair of boots with a decent sole if you're going trail riding.
So I've gone from a route that I think a lot of people go through is you start off with the motocross boots, which are massively protective, less uncomfortable than they used to be, but they have that slippy sole on them for sliding around bends in motocross. So I've gone through those to the very expensive Gore-Tex Sidi Adventure boots, which I think are perfect for what we do because they are waterproof, they're comfortable, you can wear them all day, and there is enough protection on them, I think, for trail riding.
Are they waterproof? Are they really waterproof?
Yeah.
Are they?
They really
absolutely
are.
waterproof.
Because
yeah.
just as Noel said before, there's no such thing as a waterproof glove. I'm of the opinion that there's no such thing as a waterproof
Well, if you
boot.
wear your trousers over them, obviously there's going to be one hole in every piece of footwear that you wear, but if you wear your trousers over them, that keeps the water out.
Like if you wade into a river, nothing's going to be waterproof. I've got the Sidi Adventure 2s and they are really, really waterproof. If you're just walking through and they're not going over the top, they are mega waterproof. They are very squeaky. They've got the Sidi Adventure Squeak, which is on all Sidi boots. Previous to this, I had former Adventures and they are really comfortable, but they just fell apart. And they really didn't last. I didn't really mind that they weren't that stiff. I never got hurt wearing them. Some people say they're too soft to actually support your ankle. But my problem was that they didn't stay waterproof and they started falling apart. I chose the Sidi Adventure 2s over the Formers as a.
So you don't have to wear waterproof socks then. You don't get the smelly foot syndrome.
I don't wear waterproof socks.
You don't need to. That's the thing with a properly waterproof boot. You don't need waterproof socks. So the socks I wear, and this is a recommendation, is I always wear Bridgedale ski sock, because the nice thing about those is they have like an elasticated cuff that stops them from falling down, so you don't end up with your socks bunching up in the bottom of your boot.
That's called welly sock round here.
Here's another tip. If I had waterproof socks, they would stay in my bag for when my boots get wet. The point there is that if you walk it, if my boots are waterproof until I walk into a river and the water goes over the top, and then you ride the rest of the day, and then the next day you've got to put those boots back on, that's the point where you want waterproof socks, because your boots haven't dried out.
That makes a lot of sense. That's the first useful thing I've heard you say, Greg. No, genuinely. The rest of it's all about taking bloody photos, isn't it?
The irony is I don't actually own waterproof socks.
I've gone for the Morrison's pack of 5 socks. They're about, I think, $5.99 maybe.
You should go to Aldi. They're only $3.99.
Do you not wear a great big thick pair of boots that you wear when you've got your chainsawing boots on?
Again, they're really good for that. I wear them for that. I wear them for trips to the cinema, and just generally around the house. I wear them.
Paul, there's a vacancy coming up on the podcast.
Well,
and so
let's have a listener vote, shall we?
So I've been using the same Former boots. I bought some Former boots about 11 years ago, and about 2 years into having them, I was going to Morocco, and I was a bit paranoid. I had pre-trip paranoia that these boots weren't going to last for the trip, and were either the sole was going to come away or something. So I bought another pair. I'm still using that first pair that I bought in probably 2010 or something, and they are ridiculously soft, but they're absolutely fine for the kind of low-speed trail riding that
There's
I
very
do.
little protection on them, and they're not waterproof, are they?
They are quite waterproof, actually. The second pair that I bought, I use them both alternately, really. But yeah, they are pretty waterproof.
And they're good value, aren't they? They're
No,
not expensive.
If you're going to walk into a river, you're going to get wet anyway. So,
Noel, can I ask you a question?
yes.
When you guys, because I've not ridden off-road or on-road with you or Clive, but when you guys are all off-roading together, do you get left behind much? And I will tell you why I've asked you that when you've answered that.
No.
Okay. So I thought you wear this open face helmet and you wear your Army Gore-Tex or whatever, and you don't wear knees or elbows or whatever. I thought, well, he's obviously pootling at the back and just going at Granny's walking speed. And maybe that's what listeners were thinking as well, which is why I brought it up. But if you're carrying on, you're doing the same pace, you're just gung-ho and completely cavalier, aren't you?
Well, because we are all pretty slow, normal. Slow, what should we call it? Slow or normal?
I think we're extremely skilled when the going gets tough, and that's where the fast lads tend to lag behind us. So it evens itself out after a while.
Yeah, it hasn't been fast since we had the full team of Northumbrian men. Then it was quite scary.
Yeah, they go too fast, don't they? It's because they're all like 20 and stuff.
But I've been behind you and I can't keep up with you. I think you get it into your head that you need to go fast or something, because whenever you're in front, you're flying.
There's moments, isn't there? But you chop and change, don't you, depending on what the track's like and what you want.
I hate riding at the front. My engine note becomes somebody else's engine note, and I think, oh God, I'm holding everybody up on the trail, and then my riding goes to pot. And that's why I need knees, elbows, and the best helmet.
The fastest bit on the last trip was where you stuck the GoPro on your rucksack and said, right, follow me. And there's always the instruction to stay really close because it's a wide-angle GoPro shot. And we did a really kind of bouncy up and down track for about 5 minutes. And that was dangerously fast. But yeah, I'll ride fast for the camera. But and then you said it didn't work because the camera was too low, so it never got used.
Oh, so the other thing with socks is merino. I've got a note here. Merino is great because you get that warmth and they don't smell, and also get socks with flat seams so they don't rub on your boots, which after 6 hours on the trail will be extremely unpleasant. There is one more thing I wanted to talk about that you wear, and that's your rucksack. I think on the last podcast we mentioned try and keep stuff in your rucksack to a minimum. So put all your heavy tools somewhere else. That's a comfort feature, but also a safety thing as well. You don't want a massive spanner cracking your spine when you fall on it. And Noel also mentioned not having your bladder in your rucksack. You can put it in
your bag, in your duffel bag. Yeah, in your luggage. I would say no rucksack. I used to wear a rucksack all the time and just think it was part of the look. And I sort of felt, look at me, I'm a trail rider. I need to wear a rucksack. And then thought, actually, I don't need to wear a rucksack. It's horrible wearing a rucksack. So I ditched it.
Yeah, I like having a rucksack because it just means you can just put any valuables in and just carry it into the shop or the cafe.
Yeah, but you've got a luggage rack generally on the back. It's just easy just to stick it on that and be free of it. Why would you wear a rucksack? There's no point. Unless you don't have a luggage rack.
I like having it because you can just put things in and they're there when you need them, whenever you need them. And I also wanted to talk about Kriega very briefly. Their stuff is utterly brilliant. I had my first Kriega for 25 years and it's still going strong when Greg criticised it and made me buy a new one.
It wasn't going strong. It wasn't, and neither was your back. It was like contorting you, like hanging off. I couldn't ride behind you. It was so painful seeing that.
I didn't have it adjusted properly. That was all it was. Just one strap was longer than the other, and then because we used to wind you up so much, I never adjusted it.
I'm glad that you upgraded to the T18.
I have.
It's a good piece of kit, isn't it? And it's made in an exceptionally nice part of the world, just up the road from me.
They are very good. Someone's taken time to figure out how a motorcyclist how it should fit a motorcyclist. So when you
where the weight should sit.
Yeah, when you put a regular walking rucksack on, where it's still going to fit, it's going to go on your back, but it's going to sit too high. And on the Kriega stuff, the way that it's designed is designed for you leaning forwards on your bike, and it really does work.
Do you think they offer any level of back protection?
I think you can put back protectors in them, but no. I mean, sometimes I've got my cameras in there, and that's definitely I've got a back protector underneath in my jacket or in my armored shirt, but you just weigh up the risks, isn't it? Because I need to put my camera somewhere, so it's going to go in the rucksack.
My only motorcycling injury ever has been when I was up on the fells on a trial bike and had lots of camera gear. Or I had a camera in a rucksack and I fell, sort of went over the handlebars, and all I was thinking about as I was going through the air was how not to land on my back, which made me land very awkwardly, and I broke my collarbone. So the rucksack didn't work brilliantly for me in that situation.
And if you've got a tyre lever in your rucksack, you don't want that going through your kidneys, do you? But then again, 3 litres of water in between the tyre lever and your back will add some cushioning, but it comes down to risk perception again, doesn't it?
There are 3 pieces of kit I want to talk about. We did talk in the last one about sleeping bags and mats and how vital a pillow was, obviously.
I'm going to duck out, so feel free to talk about me after I've left. I'll find out what you said. But much like how Noel feels when he's riding with us without an intercom, he's just going to have to find out when he watches the movie. So I will see you all on the flip side.
See ya. See you, Greg. It's like nobody else has got kids, isn't it? It's like it's the only person that's ever had... Oh, he's gone now.
He is such a
What a lightweight.
Terrible. And he drinks like a fish.
He's a fanny, and you can leave that bit in.
What time is it? 9:15. So, look, I just briefly wanted to talk about tents, sleeping stuff, and cooking. And the thing with a tent that I think there's 2 important things. With a tent, it's really useful to have a tent that is self-supporting. So when you pull the pegs out, the tent still stays up. And I've learnt all this stuff from Noel, really, to be honest. The importance of having, or the useful thing about a self-supporting tent is A, you can move it if you end up near a snorer really easily. But B, if it's rained in the night, you can put it in the sun the next morning and get it to dry out.
And tip it on its side, let the ground sheet dry out, which is often the wet bit, isn't it, if it's not?
And you can pitch it on hard ground, I presume. Yeah. I've not got a self-supporting one.
Yeah, I've camped on decking with my self-supporting tent. It's been very handy like that. And on trailers in Switzerland, on hay trailers
in a barn
that are undercover. Yeah, it's lovely.
The important thing with a tent is you need a porch, so you don't have to bring all your wet gear inside the tent with you.
Absolutely. And
Do you think, I was going to say, do you think do lots of tents fit this criteria? I always think I've found the perfect tent.
I'm not sure many of them do, really. I think there are plenty of tents out there that do, but I think those two things are really important to help you choose the right tent. And the big variance is the budget. So we both ended up with the same tent. Was it a Vango?
No, we've got Coleman tents.
That was it. We had Coleman tents, didn't we, for a while?
Coleman, they're Fad 2s or Fad 3s. There's not much in them, really, but the inner and outer stay together all the time.
That's a huge help.
And they're quite good value
That makes getting it up much quicker, doesn't it?
Yeah. So all I have to do is thread in the 3 aluminium poles, and that's pretty much it up. I often don't even put a peg in it unless I think it's going to be windy or it's going to rain. I don't even peg it. I just put the poles in and get the kettle on. The other great thing about that particular tent is if you wake up and it's wet, you can take down all of the inner from the inside and bag it all up, and then very quickly take the outer down and be on your way.
And you can put that in a separate bag so the inner doesn't get wet with the outer. Well, because I'm extremely wealthy, I've actually upgraded to an MSR Hubba, I don't know, whatever it is. But yeah, that has kind of a porch either side, so it's got 2 porches. And I think that the nice thing about that, it packs up really, really small. As I mentioned the other day, it's not really about weight, it's just the pack size, which makes a huge difference. But you pay for the small pack size.
Yeah. So Nature Hike is a Chinese company. They've done lots of really good copies, haven't they, of these
available
tents?
Through AliExpress. How many tents have you got there, Paul? Paul's holding up a number of tents.
Well, I'm holding 3 tents that have never been used because of kin COVID. One is a hooped bivvy because I have a bivvy bag. Now I have a hooped bivvy for predominantly on the back of a bicycle. I have a 1-man tent also from the back of a bicycle, but in worse climatic conditions. And I've just bought a new 2-man tent for me and my little daughter when we start going on motorbike camping trips next year.
Are there lots of tents being sort of marketed at the cycling fraternity that would do very well for motorcyclists?
Bike packing, as it's now called, as opposed to just touring.
Yeah.
No, they're generally a bit too small. Because you've got a great big pair of bulky boots and jacket and trousers and helmet. I think they'd probably all be a bit too small, but a lot of the tents nowadays, no matter what the name written on the side, I think they're all made in the same factory anyway.
We should come back to Nature Hike in a minute, but that you can buy through AliExpress very cheaply. One other thing I didn't mention was, obviously on a bicycle, you do care about weight very, very much, but on a motorbike, the weight isn't the issue. So I always buy a 2 or even sometimes a 3-man tent, so you've got more room to move about. If you're stuck in there when the weather's bad or whatever, it's a little bit more livable than having a 1-man tent, which usually very, very small.
Yeah, space is very nice to have. And that's the porch thing again. You can leave your minging gear in there instead of it soaking through your sleeping bag in the middle of the night. And if you've got the right size porch and the right little chair, you can cook inside your tent.
So what's your big tent recommendation? Name a make and a model.
Tent I took to Iceland, which is my big tent, a 3-man tent, is a Wild Country Blizzard 3. And I should have bought the green one, not the red one.
Because it's just a little bit more discreet.
Well, yeah, but also because in the middle of the night in Iceland, when it's still light, it amplifies the light, and it's like bright sunshine inside the thing. It's a tunnel-shaped one with a great big porch at the end, but it packs down really small. Well, not really small, but small enough for a 3-man tent.
Have you ever been in a blackout tent?
No, because I've never heard of one until now. Coleman,
again, do a similar tent to the one I've got, which is the Fad. They brought out another one. I can't remember its name. It'd be easy to find, but it's sold as a blackout tent, and I'd have no experience of it, but it's marketed as something that's very, very dark. Yeah.
Wow.
Which sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah. They'll invent an electric toothbrush next, won't they?
Coming back to the Nature Hike stuff, Noel, which is available through AliExpress, they are basically copies of things like the MSR Hubba Bubbas and the Wild Country type of stuff, which are both kind of high-end tents, £300, £400, £500. Whereas some of the Nature Hike stuff, you'll get something that looks very much like an MSR for about £80.
I bought a Cloud Peak, which was I bought it off. There's quite a few people on eBay who are obviously buying them in from AliExpress in some sort of bulk, and are trying to make a little bit of a profit by selling it on eBay, but they're still pretty cheap. I think mine was about 120 quid. And for a tent that weighs about 1.5 kilograms, that's a bit of a bargain, really.
What's the quality like, do you think?
It's really good. It's really, really good. It feels a lot flimsier than my Coleman, but of course it is because it's a lot lighter. The Coleman's about 3.5 kilograms, and it is quite bulky. And I just bought it because I just wanted something, which when I was trying to get everything into one single duffel bag for that trip to Wales. So I just had to go for something that was a lot smaller than the Coleman bag. And it was about half the size of the Coleman bag packed. So I just did it for those reasons. But it's not as luxurious as the Coleman. If I had the room, I would always take the Coleman.
Do you upgrade your tent pegs?
No. It always makes me cringe when I see people on campsites, not usually with a hammer, but with a rock, bashing in tent pegs or pushing them in with their foot, because they'll just always bend. There's always a way of just pushing it in with your hand. So tent pegs last me. I tend to not use many of them, so I tend not to lose many of them. And I often, as I did on a recent canoeing trip, I came back with more tent pegs than I set off with, because I just, whenever I was taking my tent down, I'd always find a spare one somewhere. So no, I don't replace them. Why are you asking if I replace them?
Just because if you get those bog standard aluminium ones, those do bend easily. So I usually jump on eBay, and for about £6 you can buy, how do you describe it on a podcast?
Some more robust ones?
Some more robust ones, yes. I know some more robust ones that have got some improved structural integrity.
Alpkit do some fairly well-priced ones as well. Alpkit.
Yeah. But if you go on eBay, you can get exactly the same thing with just haven't got Alpkit written on them.
Yeah, but don't hit them with rocks. Don't stand on them. Don't use a hammer. Just find a way of putting them in. Put them in at a jauntier, slimmer angle if they won't go in.
Cool.
Oh, and then ensuite facilities. When are we getting onto that?
Should we finish on ensuite facilities?
No, let's.
Clive's told us about the jet
so
boil.
I'm holding up 2 cooking systems, and my Trangier's in the loft, so I couldn't be asked to get that out.
Oh, you're a man after my own heart. I've got the 3 exact same systems.
So,
Trangier or Tranger?
Don't know. Would have to ask a Swedish person.
Du har snukkopatara. You've got beautiful potatoes.
Thank you. So this is a jet boil. I'm holding my jet boil up to the camera. Viewers, you can't see this. It's quite a big thing. It's like a very large mug. It's probably about 10 inches tall and probably about 4 inches in diameter. And jet boils are brilliant. It's not just a clever name. They boil water really quickly. They're a great thing.
They boil water really quickly. Are they great for cooking with?
No, they're utterly awful things, and they will burn everything. They're called jet boil. Boil.
So I'm not getting one.
An alternative to a jet boil, though, because jet boils are about 100 quid, is I've got this thing, which is probably half the size of the jet boil. So this is another AliExpress special. So it's a titanium mug and cooking pot. I've even got a little titanium spork.
You've got a folding spoon. Yeah, a folding spork that doesn't poke into everything.
And also, I've got a little cooking thing. This tiny little
knockoff pocket rocket.
And the gas fits in there as well. And all of that, excluding the gas,
perfect.
£13.
Yeah, that's all you need. You don't need any of these jet boil nonsense. You just need a little gas burner, any make, a little gas canister, and a little pot.
I tell you what the jet boil's good at is when you're in a really, really windy, cold environment and you're trying to make gas last a long time because they are so efficient. But as soon as you try and cook anything, it just burns the crap out of it. The problem with a pocket rocket or a rip-off pocket rocket is, well, you've always got something that you can make a shelter with, but in windy conditions, they're not good. They give you a little bit more heat control than a jet boil, but nowhere near as much heat control as a Trangia. Hopefully, Clive, you've converted your Trangia to gas.
Well, I don't use my Trangia very much, to be honest, because it's quite big. I've got the bigger one, and you probably want a smaller one.
This is a meths.
Yeah, it's a meths burner, and meths is very slow, and you have to have a bottle of meths as well with you.
They're a thing of the past, aren't they?
But you can get a gas converter. So my Trangia's now gas, and you can cook. You can properly cook with it, and you've got 2 or 3 nesting pans, which is great, and a kettle, so you can cook a proper
get a
meal.
non-stick frying pan as well.
The meths one. The meths ones are just a small step up from the thing that Scott took away with him, aren't they? Those little paraffin pump-up brass things.
Yeah.
So there was that. Then there was the Trangia or Trangia with meths, and then there's gas.
Plus, if you're taking meths, you've got to have another bottle, which once a gas canister's empty, you can recycle it and don't have to carry it around for the rest of the trip. But you've always got that half litre or litre meths bottle that is always in your pannier, taking up valuable space.
Yeah. So ensuite facilities. I imagine, Clive, this is something you would never do because you like the long trudge to the toilet block on the campsite, don't you?
Are you saying you're a piss bottle man?
Yes. It's a nightmare.
Yes.
You have to go way more when you're camping anyway because it's always a little bit colder. There's always the amount of midges you let in when you open up the fly sheet. It's awful. So, yeah, it's a major upgrade is to take ensuite facilities with you. I panic slightly if I haven't got an appropriate bottle.
I really, really, really struggle to find an appropriate bottle. But Nalgene make really wide necked ones with graduations. So you can, by the end of a fortnight's trip, you've got a really interesting chart of how much you micturated throughout the fortnight.
We're well into this, Clive. Have you ever done it?
I'm really glad we're having this conversation. I'm really glad we're opening up because I've often thought about doing it, especially as you get older. You need to go for a piss at least once a night. And I've thought, well, if I do that, but what if somebody sees my piss bottle? Everybody's doing it.
Every morning, you can ask your fellow campers if anybody wants any apple juice. I do it every morning, and it's still not funny.
I'm glad we've had this conversation.
Just a little discreet little pour out of the side of the tent in the morning. No one's the wiser. Works beautifully.
I think this is a really good point to end the podcast.
Just remember where you poured it when you step out in your bare feet.
Excellent. So that concludes the fourth and final part of our trip planning podcasts. Massive thanks to Paul and Greg for helping out with those. Much appreciated. Some great top tips from those guys. Join us next time. I'm very excited about having Adam Mitchinson from Rally Raid joining us to tell us everything Rally Raid. Should be a good one. Catch you later. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you really appreciate what we do, you could consider supporting us on Patreon or buy us a coffee. Links are available on our website, which is tampodcast.com, tampodcast.com, where we also have a limited selection of branded stuff. But either way, please keep listening and spreading the word. See you next time.